That was an intro.
Wow, what is going on, everybody? What is going on?
I repost all my figures. Not even joking.
Hold on a second. I've got an echo somewhere. I got to find it. Let's see. That's
Yeah.
not it.
Someone has stream up.
Yeah. Where's that echo coming from?
I don't know where that's coming from. You guys hear that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Probably have an extra browser open.
Oh, I got it. Nope, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, rookie mistake. Jeez. I don't ever do that. That's crazy. That's embarrassing. Welcome, guys. This is the Ronin Joe episode 3. Kind of random. I wasn't even planning on streaming this weekend, but I came across this interview, and a lot of people seem to be talking about this subject, and something I actually really want to talk about that I don't usually talk about, which is why this show was created. So I called a couple friends up, and they were kind enough to join me for a little bit as we're going to review this interview between this whistleblower named Jake Barber, which if you guys haven't seen the interview yet, it's actually pretty interesting. I would say the guy comes off fairly believable, but there's some things I think are interesting about this entire situation. But before we jump into it, Gooch, how's it going, brother?
I'm good. It's been a busy day. This is stream, I don't know how many, but
Good God,
three,
man.
three. Yeah, 3. Yeah. But yeah, happy to be here with my brothers,
I like that.
Joe and Badger. Yeah.
What's going on, Badger? Great to have you back. I think it's the first time I've had you on this channel, I believe.
It's great to be had. I'm
Awesome.
all the human contact I can. No, thank you. It's great to be here. I've said it behind stage. I missed you from our X-Men days. So
I know.
It's good to thank you for the invite.
Yeah, no, I miss streaming with you guys. Yeah, that was a fun show. You guys, I have to be honest though, it's a little intimidating the amount that you guys stream. It's crazy. I don't know how you do it. I don't know. I'm trying to catch up. About 3 streams a week is about all I can do. That's about it.
We're gonna have to bump those numbers up.
We're gonna try. You gotta talk to my wife first. You know.
We will.
Yeah.
Let's say hi to the chat first before we get going. Hail the Lord was number 1 in the chat, number 1 in our hearts. Great to see you, brother. Thank you for being here. Mark Penguin, not far behind. Yes, a Saturday stream. It doesn't really happen that often. I don't know how long, many times I'll do it, but it seemed good. I just wanted to get out here and do it. I didn't even know if anybody would join me. I was originally just going to do it by myself, but I'm glad you guys jumped on to fill the air because it's a long interview to talk through. We got pizza in the house. Matt LaRock as well.
That's what the cabal does, Joe.
Yeah, I like that. Becoming a part of it. I like it.
Yeah.
Citizen Ronin. Gotta be sure there will be no anal probes administered. No assurance on that one. I do
want a good experience or a bad experience. Let's not put limits on it.
It might be good for somebody. Yeah, who knows?
They're very gentle.
YSA is in the house. Great to see you, brother. Wiley J draws as well. We got Skunk Snot. Great to see you. Member of the channel. Cosmic Studios is rolling in here. Charles Rivas, haven't seen you in a while. Hope you were doing well. Great to see you. Let's see. Yeah, Alec Baldwin's finger.
ABF.
I like it.
Who's
Great to
that?
see you.
Yeah, who's that guy?
Hold my dual shock.
Huh, that's a weird name.
Oh yeah, weird.
That's a hard one for a dyslexic person like me to actually pronounce. So I appreciate it.
Doolies. Just call them the Doolies.
Doolies? Okay, we'll go with Doolies. Thank you for being here, Doolies. Appreciate you. Agent Cub, Jacob is in the house. Great to see you. We got Edwin, the man. Great to see you. Jay Blue, how's it going? Hail to you. John as well. Hope you are doing good, my friend. Do we think the UFO files will get declassified? I'm going to talk about that for a second when we get into this, because I got ideas about it all. I don't think we are going to get any real true answers, unlike some people think. I'll just say it. I'll just put it at that. I'll put it at that. Before we get going, though, I know the Gooch has not seen this interview yet. Badger, I don't think you have either.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Before we get going, do you know anything about what has been going on lately? With the egg, we talked about a little bit before we went live, this whole disclosure thing. You're talking about it started back in 2018. I've been kind of only paying attention to about for the last few years, I guess, a couple years. I think it's kind of odd that we're getting it now after years and years of, kind of hiding it under the rug and more conspiracy theory. I think it's actually planned. I think it's more of a planned thing than just, everyone's finally like, let's do it. We're going to start talking about aliens. What do you think about what's going on with this whole thing?
I mean, it's planned. Dr. Stephen Greer, in their disclosure project, they've been working towards disclosure of what they know for a long time. And then Trump on Rogan said, "Yeah, I'm going to declassify it." And now he's going to declassify. 4 days in, and he declassified the JFK, Martin Luther King. It's coming.
I just saw that today.
Yeah.
That's
first
gonna
day
be
he undid 78 different like executive orders that Biden did. So like, I want aliens too. I'm all right with him doing the other things first.
Yeah,
But
the
the
JFK
JFK
stuff first.
stuff?
Yeah, that
That's
needs to be
big.
done first. I just saw that there was somebody quoting there's like 5 million pages of the JFK file. So I'm waiting for somebody to actually start putting some information because that's way too much work for me. I'll tell you what. But I'm
That's the thing, is
interested.
once they release it, there's just so much to look through. And then even if he declassifies everything they know, as we were talking about, this just might be the people that are elected every couple of years, what they know, which is basically what anyone that's been paying attention knows. It would just be confirmed. And then the secrets would still be the secrets. The Stargate.
That's kind of my thought process on that, you know. And
Yeah.
is it going to be how redacted is it going to be? Is it going to be completely open? You know, is
We'll
this
know
a
that there's
fully
anti-gravity and
unredacted?
aliens, right? But we won't know where and who and why.
Yeah, I mean, because they'll always play around with the security, top secret security and stuff like that. They won't ever put that stuff out there. So there's going to be things that they keep from the public. I think there'll be enough that gets put out there that's enough to really get people to, get excited or confirm something that they had a hunch in or believed in for a long time. But it's not going to give like the answers I think everybody's thinking it's going to. At least that's me. We'll see. We got Eric the Guapo in the house. Great to see you, brother. Jeremiah Blackwell as well as Quantum Age Comics. Great to see you guys. Hex Allen. All right. What's going on, brother? Good to see you. Hold my, we'll just say Dooley. Is that what we're saying?
Doolies.
Yeah,
Doolies. Duels. Declassified the smoke screen and the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know what's up.
LBJ.
Well,
yeah,
hey, I agree with you on that one. I agree. All right. Well, let me jump into this. Let me bring up this interview, and we're just going to get going because we only have Badger for an hour, and the Gucci's going to be sticking around for a little bit as well. So if you guys aren't familiar with that, you're going to get familiar with this interview with this guy. So if you guys have been seeing that alien egg craft thing that they've been talking about, regardless if you believe in it or not, it's interesting to me. This is the guy that actually recovered one of them. So he's going to tell his story with this. So let's get rolling with this. Let me know how the volume is out there.
Capacity for the broader intelligence community as a contractor. Over the last 3 decades, my work has been very diverse.
Video good?
Included the recovery of downed UAP of non-human origin. I am pleased to share that as of a couple weeks ago, I fulfilled the promise to our friend David Grush by getting myself into a skiff with Congress, and I have provided top secret SCI testimony on the subject matter of UAP. With this behind us, I'm pleased to be at a place where I can share information with the public. The type of information I can share will be limited by my DOPSR restrictions and personal restrictions I have set in order to protect the privacy and quality of life of my friends, family, and colleagues. So with that,
we have it sped up. That's why he's talking fast.
Yeah, I've got it sped up. One revelation. I just want to make sure we don't get dinged. If we do, it is what it is.
Felt pretty good, actually. Get that off my chest.
You've lived with this secret for how long?
You could say more than a decade.
So let's roll back. Let's tell the story of Jake Barber.
Okay.
You say you were an enlisted man, and then you ended up working for the intelligence community as a contractor. Tell me that story. How did that happen?
Well, in high school, I was 17 years old. I was prospected into a program, an enlistment program. It was a guaranteed enlistment or guaranteed training enlistment program contract for a specific career field at the time called combat control. Career field is still called that. The contract was unique.
I don't know if you guys want to hear about this guy or not. I can try to skip forward and get to some of the better stuff. That's up to you. Let me know.
Screening for that.
I mean, it seems similar to Grush, who had an intelligence background, and then as you go higher and higher, you eventually get pulled into a special,
special operations selection.
Yeah.
I completed selection roughly 4 months later, and then entered into what is known as the pipeline. The pipeline is approximately a 2-year specialized training schedule where you go to a number of schools. At a certain point in my pipeline, I was approached by some individuals who had a discussion with me and convinced me it might be a good idea to consider becoming an airplane mechanic.
Was that to be your cover?
Yes. Yes.
Because I noticed your DD-214, which is your release discharge document from the US
This is
Air Force,
basically trying to establish that
what
he's saying is true based on his job and everything and what he's done. So
known as the
Can't remember what
21
that's
Dual
called
Shop.
when they do
I
that
spent
in
a lot of time there in my cover capacity.
Vetting him,
Vetting, yeah,
you could
basically
basically
vetting,
say
yeah.
that Grush already has vetted him, and that he said he would go to Congress in a skiff, which is a specialized separate room where you are allowed legal protections to say what you know.
Told you that you're not allowed
Top
to
secret and shit like
you
that.
can go to jail for
That is correct. Yeah, they've created quite a landmine of words to avoid.
So
So
if I can
perceived,
skip
was
ahead real
anyone
quick.
ever telling you that you were part of a government that was aware of the existence of non-human intelligence?
No, not at that time. And I'll have to tell you that everything changed for me right around 9/11. And I left the Air Force and basically made a left turn at Albuquerque, never part of the global war on terror. And quite literally made a left turn at Albuquerque, and was sent out to California at that time to begin establishing my.
I'm just saying, be aware.
As an independent contractor, so that I could serve what was coming down the line next for me. And that is the path which led to the UAP subject.
In your time in deployment, you met certain people from an aerospace company, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Now, it's also part of the constraints you operate under that you can't name that aerospace company.
Correct. There's no good reason to name them, even if I wasn't constrained.
So what are you doing there?
Oh, sorry.
Well, they were supporting us
Lockheed
with
Martin.
new
Sorry.
weapons
Yeah.
technology that could be used to
He does a really good job of not
disable
naming
vehicles and aircraft.
anybody in this
My
interview.
understanding is that
So
they
the
were
one thing you'll
essentially
find
using-
out
it's
from
a matter of
doing this
public
is the
record.
reason
It's
they don't
micro-
actually have
it's
disclosure
being
is because
used
the
at that
U.S.
time.
government
Correct.
would be
There
guilty
were
of
some
so
early
many
prototypes that were being used
laws
at
of
that time.
conspiring
And I
with
met
private
individuals that
American
were there
companies like
representing the companies
Raytheon
that
and
were
Lockheed
providing that
Martin and
service to government,
Boeing
made some
that
friends,
they
and
would
those
be subject
relationships
to
led
legal
to
action
opportunities later in the
because
California
all
Right,
these
yeah.
companies
where I
help
began
them
my
engineer
journey.
and make
Before
all
we
their
go any
shit.
further, had you ever, as a child, experienced any kind of anomalous phenomena yourself?
No.
This was completely off the books for you. It was complete revelation to you.
I
the
mean,
notion.
I was born in the 70s. I grew up a fan of Star Wars and Star Trek and Back to the
That
Future.
explains it.
It certainly was a pleasant and fun idea, but during that same time, it was also very clear that the culture, it was clearly nostalgic, like the subject matter of
A little
UAP
bit.
and non-human intelligence,
little
which wasn't an
Got
acronym used
the
back then.
Adderall eyes.
Aliens, let's say, that it was 100% a fictional story. So while I was interested in it, it was purely as an adolescent from being interested by any other fictional subject.
Before we get into the nitty-gritty of what happened after 2001,
That's
talk
the
about-
real stuff right there.
what you perceive are the rights and responsibilities of American citizens under your Constitution. As an enlisted man, did you swear an oath to the Constitution?
I sure did, yeah.
How much do you care about the ideas and the principles that are espoused in the US Constitution?
Those ideas are absolutely paramount. They come
Freedom of speech.
above everything else. Even though I mentioned my family and my friends are whose side I'm on first, I cannot facilitate protecting them without the fundamental nature of the US Constitution. So it is paramount to everything else.
Is it fair to say that the reason why you're speaking to us here today is because you think it's important that the American people be told about what we're going to disclose in accordance with the Constitution? Article 1 of the US Constitution enshrines the idea
Is
that
he
all
still
arms
living in
of
the
government
States, this guy?
must
I think
be
so, yeah.
transparent and accountable to the Congress.
Yeah, he's
Is
working
that
with.
happening?
I can't really speak to that. From what we're being told, there is no evidence.
Yeah, he started a organization. They're going to start doing more kind of reveals and stuff of all the missions and stuff they've been on. He talks about it here in this interview, but yeah, he's still very much in the States.
If it's anything like Grush, he's saying just up into the line and nothing else.
Right.
And that's when they start talking about governmental skiffs, where he can talk about top secret shit and anything that would get him arrested.
Right, exactly. And he even says that, there's a lot of questions he doesn't answer in there because of that national security or whatever.
Presence here.
He
There's
goes
no
into,
evidence
guys, quote
of
unquote, what he
non-human
can talk
intelligence.
about.
There's a little bit of admittance and evidence that there's something anomalous in the sky flying around and we don't know what it is. So the bad news is I can't really help further that question that everyone wants answered. The good news is I'm going to begin to be able to start answering that question. And that's the primary reason I'm here to speak to you today.
Do you think Congress is being misled, deceived about what is secretly known about non-human intelligence, alien life?
Yeah, it's clear they don't have the full story.
What's being held back?
This is how to
Oh,
get
come on.
That's what's being held back.
If you wanna
Avocado's
drop
Brave
this-
browser, by the way, this won't happen. It blocks the.
Start eating more of these.
Oh,
might
Dr.
do that.
Drew, I met him once. He's nice.
Yeah.
guy.
About everything. But there's another problem. I don't even know that they're giving it the proper attention to begin with. So unfortunately, Congress is very ignorant when it comes to the subject.
So very recently, the Pentagon spokesman assured press reporters in a Pentagon briefing that there is no evidence of extraterrestrial engagement with planet Earth. Is that true?
No, that's not true.
Oh,
Now, they like to hang their hat on some key words there, extraterrestrial. So that means outside of the planet Earth. And that is yet to be determined by my best understanding.
So you're saying you know for a fact there are aliens,
Yes, 100%.
there are alien craft.
100%.
see, that's
Have
that's
you
already
been
been
involved in the
admitted.
recovery of those
Yeah.
alien craft?
Well, Ross, yes, I have.
Look at
How'd
Virginia,
you feel to say
Brazil
that?
for some real fun
I'm
ones
kinda
that are
over
like real.
This has been a fact I had to get over. It wasn't easy when it first hit you. That was years ago, and it's actually quite therapeutic to get to talk about it. And I'm encouraged that it's becoming commonplace, because that's where it needs to be for us to move forward and start gathering
shut it
some
down.
evidence, which we intend to do.
So you're building up a cover in California shortly after 9/11. What are you doing?
Well, I'm doing a number of things. One, trying to fill out a sensible explanation for my backstory. I mentioned one of the clubs I was in was Pilot Club, and you'll speak to my good friend Don Paul here shortly, who I met during that time. But there's no record of that. So actually, one of the first things I did is I had to go to commercial pilot school in order to create a legitimate training record so that I could operate in an official capacity this time as a helicopter pilot.
So you'd learned how to fly as a covert operator, but they didn't give you a license for it in the military.
No.
Because you weren't allowed to have that qualification, because that would undermine your cover, I suppose.
Correct.
So you had to go and pretend to not be a pilot in order to get your commercial
Yeah, that
pilot
was loads of fun, actually. I found it quite challenging to pretend I didn't know how to fly. So it was amusing. Yeah.
You must have blitzed it.
Well, pretending to be bad was quite easy in the beginning. The hardest part was faking a natural learning curve. So how to show that I'm getting better in a progression that they've seen before. So that was fun. A few times I took the liberty to mess with my flight instructor, but he just thought I got lucky.
So this happened for what, a couple of years?
Yeah, a number of things were done. So one of the rules we go by is that legitimacy is the best cover. So in order to provide a certain utility to the government by way of a contractor, I have to go and establish a lot of legitimate businesses. I have to function in a legitimate way under existing contracts to build a cover. A cover is not a hollow shell. It has to be layers deep. And the best way to have many layers of cover is to just go do something genuine to begin with.
So let's be clear about this. You're a very financially successful businessman.
I'm going to do something real quick to not do those intros. I've got a different account. So nobody pay attention to this account name because it's been my burner account for a while. So that's just between us in this stream. But I'm going to bring this out because it's got no commercials. That's going to be a way better way to view this than what we were viewing. Because that's how much I care about you guys and the experience here viewing this. So nobody look at the upper right screen of it all.
Also, just hit the maximize button and we won't be able to see the account name. You'll just see the.
You know what? That's a good idea.
Gotcha.
See, you're always thinking. Let me do that. Let me do that instead.
And all you kids out there, Brave browser, it blocks automatically all the things.
So
Not sponsored. Not sponsored.
he says an egg-shaped aircraft.
Yeah. All right, hold on a second. I gotta log into my other account. That's stupid. Yeah, if you guys have seen the egg-shaped aircraft that they're talking about, has anybody seen that on X? I mean, it's been going all over X. I can't imagine that you haven't been able to see it.
I have not particularly seen the egg-shaped one. They all seem to be.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, well, there's this egg-shaped craft. Here, let me just, while I'm actually doing this. There's this egg-shaped craft that has been going around where they say that this guy specifically picked this up from like the Antarctica. Oh, where are we at here? Oh, stupid. And he was the one that
shaped UAP.
He was the one that did the
Antarctica photos.
Yeah, he was the one that did the recovery of it all. And he said that this thing was up to 20 feet long when they picked it up. So,
well, when we were on Beaming Up Badger and we're talking about Bob Lazar, he says one of the things was found in an archaeological dig, meaning some of them are quite old.
Well, I would definitely look. I think a lot of this stuff we talked about before we went live. I got a different view when it comes to some of the stuff that I come from. When it comes to this, I'm just going to keep playing it on this account until I get the other one set up.
Utility to the government.
I think a lot of stuff has been around for a long time. I do not believe it's ancient aliens. I'll just put it that way.
I have to function in a legitimate way under existing contracts to build a cover. A cover is not a hollow shell. It has to be layers deep. And the best way to have many layers of cover is to just go do something genuine to begin with.
So let's be clear about this. You're a very financially successful businessman in your own right. You've done well in business.
Yes.
Done well.
You are not being paid by us or anyone to do this interview.
No. No.
In fact, you're deriving no financial benefit or in-kind benefit at all from doing this interview.
No.
Why are you speaking to us today?
Well, because I've got some good news. Okay. So I know everyone's been waiting for people like me to speak out, and we haven't been doing nothing the past several years. There's been a lot going on. And I'm very pleased to share that we are moving forward in an official and transparent capacity to explore the answer to these questions that there appears to be no evidence for. And our number one goal now is to function in a private capacity with the backing of venture capitalists and in coordination with some of the most key departments in the government in order to start answering these questions in a transparent way related to the UAP topic.
Are you afloat?
So you can pause it right now because he just said,
Yeah.
I don't know shit and I'm not going to say shit, but together with your money, we will begin to find shit. Thank you,
Yeah.
Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah.
I know. Together we will
Yeah.
find the secrets of immortality.
Well,
Yeah.
part of this is too, I mean, he's got a program and a documentary and all this stuff, I think, coming out, which is one of the reasons what makes me wonder about the information in general. But some of the stuff he says within this interview is very fascinating as to where or what I think is going to be happening in the future with all this alien stuff. And I got a specific idea coming from my religious background of what I think is going to happen. And I'm interested to see what you guys are going to think as we
Is
get
this
forward.
some kind of
go forward in it.
propaganda operation?
No, and I'm going to say no, and I'm going to tell you I'm not lying to you. But unfortunately, there's no way that I can convince you of that if that's what you're thinking.
A lot of people watching this will be thinking, oh, you can never trust a spook. You know, there's obviously wheels within wheels. This is part of some official government disclosure operation.
Yeah.
Is it?
No, it's not. And again, I'm not going to be able to make you believe that. But what I can invite you to do is I'll paraphrase the book of Matthew. You will know us by our fruits. So I'd like to invite you to stay tuned in and watch what our new project is about to do and prepare to be dazzled.
So you're part of a team that is proposing.
He does quote
to
the
do
Bible quite a
private
bit in this,
retrievals.
which is interesting
Absolutely.
with some of the stuff he says.
Yeah.
He sounds
Yeah.
like a used car
That's
salesman
why he
too,
quotes
though.
it.
Wow. So let's talk about now what you do know.
Okay.
When you finally secured your pilot's training in the commercial world, what happened?
While I was getting my pilot's training, I was also working to set up a number of businesses in order to pursue government contracts from the DOI, the DOD, and all their organizations and departments within those. And mostly what we did, a lot like in the 90s, the cover capacity takes up the most of your time is spent operating in the cover capacity.
So you were working in legitimate businesses, earning a living like
For
everybody
some
else.
reason,
like
it's not
everyone
letting me
else.
bring
You're
up my
just waiting
other
for the call.
account. Sorry about that,
All
guys.
the incidental
Stuck with
benefits
this.
of the capabilities of the companies you set up are those benefits that are on standby to be deployed in the subject matter of UAPs.
So you've set up all those legitimate businesses. When did you get the call?
So as a helicopter operator, we provide a number of services to a number of departments within the military industrial complex. And that includes
Doesn't
the
blink
Department
very
of the
often.
Interior as well as the DOI.
That's a
Department
good
of the
point.
Interior has a number of other departments within it, and we work mostly in those for our CONUS or within the continental United States. Those operations include things like firefighting, long haul, short haul, which is our external loads for helicopters, working for the BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs, anything you could do to provide utility, anything that you could do with the utility of a helicopter, we were put to task on.
Now, at this stage, there was no indication of any anomalous phenomena at all.
No.
When did you first start becoming aware of strange objects in the sky during your work?
Well, a lot of the work we did was on what I call the range. And the range is a particular geographical area where the U.S. government and its private partners use to test all kinds of things, weapon systems and resilience to weapon systems of certain craft. And so you see a lot of exciting things. And I have to remind you that my particular role is very basic: security and transportation. It gets a little broad as you drill down, but I'm a security and transportation expert, and that's the service we broadly provided to the government and its partners.
So you start seeing at the range.
Yes.
That's one thing he does bring up is that his knowledge goes to that extent of transportation and security. Like he's not an actual
Security and transportation, i.e., I help transport a bunch of illegal shit that would be valuable and dangerous if people got people or personnel or items or personnel.
He talks about a couple of things that he's seen that they've done, that they've worked with. Specifically, he gets into the egg here in a little while because that was like the big thing that was going on. And it was probably coordinated, I would assume, the footage of the egg going out and this and that. So, I mean, if you guys know what the egg is, if you've been paying attention on social media, if it's popped up, it's something that's been going on. People have been talking about, at least a lot of the people I follow. So this is really related to that. This guy goes out and they retrieve a bunch of shit. They're contracted by the government. And he's saying that he's been in contact with non-human intelligent crafts, but he doesn't really say beings, if you notice that. We talk about the crafts in this.
Well, yeah, it's always interesting
interview
out there. It was a process for me getting to the point until we had our first experience with something that was obviously non-human in origin. But up until that time, there's lots of interesting things in the sky. I can tell you that our technology, and by our I mean anything that lies within the inventory of the United States government and its private partners, is pretty spectacular. There's some cool things. And from an observer standpoint on the ground, it's hard to tell exactly what's going on. Things come in and out of sight. Things disappear for a moment and reappear. Things seem to move very quickly. Things change color. They change shape. And a good reference for this is, I'm sure we've all seen these drone shows, like they get put on at the Super Bowl halftime or other places, and those are pretty amazing to see, visually amazing. But we all know that's human tech, and we accept it. But if you kind of think about that and think about perhaps what we might be doing privately, in the interest of national security, your imagination could fill in the blanks on what you might see on a test range that's being used by the U.S. government and its partners.
I mean, I guess we all expect that there's technology that we don't know about that's being kept confidential for very good reasons, because the United States doesn't want foreign adversaries to know that it has an aerospace advantage,
Sure,
or a weapons advantage over a potential rival.
Yep.
And were you telling yourself that for a long time when you started seeing anomalous objects on the range?
Yeah, because just like it is now, you kind of have to train yourself. Even once you become a believer in the UAP subject, and you take some folks outside who are believers, and they look up, they get really excited and falsely identify a satellite as a UAP or something else in the sky, an airplane that has, you might not be able to see its
I just
position,
have a
lights, or
hard
its
time
strobe.
with
So you know what Louis Elizondo has described as the 5 observables:
Yes.
instantaneous speed, incredible hypersonic speeds, transmedium travel, water to air, air to
Sure.
water, positive lift, some kind of propulsion system that isn't explained by conventional
Yes.
systems, and stealth.
Gravitic
You
drive,
were seeing
element
objects that
115.
complied with those weird observables.
Yes. And at that time, you would also see things when you talk about the transmedium. So one of those that would raise your eyebrow is more of the transmedium characteristics, because things would come from the ground, like from the earth, from a ridge, from a mountain, or it could pass through.
So they come out of a ridge.
Out of a ridge, yeah.
Now that is clearly technology that is certainly not known.
So, Badge, you've been paying attention to a lot of this stuff from our
Rush has talked
conversation.
about this.
It seems like a lot of the stuff he's talking about is stuff that has been theorized and talked about for a long time, right? Like, none of this is like brand spanking new.
If you want to get
subject matter.
woo-woo Star Trek wise, it's just phasing in and out, and it's like a teleporter manipulation. If you want to get like spiritual woo-woo, it's going just in and out of the metaphysical plane to our reality. But they've always been here, confused them. Yeah, Ezekiel's wheel type shit.
Yeah, no, it's.
But then
that's
why do
some
they crash in
interesting
lightning
conversations.
storms? It would be a different question. That's when you start talking about more than one type of thing visiting us. And yeah, they don't mention beans because look what we do. We make drones. Spaces. If you are going across space, a lot of radiation.
Yeah,
Easy to just send unmanned drones. Or
yeah, I believe that whatever we're seeing is definitely from here. Like we talked before we went live. Like I don't believe in the extraterrestrial, so to speak. I think there's so many things going on this planet that we can't explain. Man-made things as well. Who knows? But a lot of this stuff is kind of almost the reason why I say some of this is fishy to me, because he basically comes out and is quote unquote confirming a lot of stuff that a lot of people already have known or wanted to know. And part of my thought process with this is, if this is a psyop, you're just feeding into the stuff that people want to hear, right? Like at this point now, they're finally coming out and saying it, kind of thing.
I would check out the Varginha, Brazil case. That's very physical creatures. They picked it up and took it to the hospital. The guy died of a horrible fucking infection, and hundreds and hundreds of witnesses that all saw it, and very consistent stories. Anyway, I'm just saying, so man, if it's all demons and spiritual woo-woo, man, some of them are going through a long way to pretend and do weird, odd things instead of
Yeah, the funny thing about it, I do believe that there's a spiritual element to a lot of these things when you talk about demons and angels or fallen angels, but that doesn't mean that there's not a physical element to what we are seeing, or things that happened in the past that were physical beings, flesh and
Clawed
bone.
Reptilian with red eyes and smelling of ammonia and slime all over him. That sounds like a demon.
Dude, I'm telling you, like, I believe that any of that stuff could be possible, because I allow myself to believe that. I need evidence to just be like full gong, jump in head first kind of thing. But there are so many unexplained things in this world, right? Mummies that have been found. They're just they look odd to the human form, and there's all these excuses of like, they worship certain gods, so they bound heads and they did all this kind of stuff, and that's why there are these deformations. But there's a lot of stuff if you jump into that. Exactly. If you jump down in that rabbit hole, there's a lot of these skulls that when you actually examine them are not like formed or built like a human skull. Like they don't have the same kind of properties as a human skull. So there's something, I don't know exactly what it is. So it allows your mind to play, imagination, to imagine of what it could be. And that could be anything depending on what you're influenced by, whether it's religion or, the alien stuff. But there's definitely something physical evidence that is in the earth, on the earth, that has been discovered. And for some odd reason, a lot of it they have kept behind closed doors.
Now, again, that is the visual.
Go ahead, man. Sorry.
No, you go ahead. I was just gonna say something about it. Like, it's nothing. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Understanding of what you're seeing.
And was that human?
Well, I want your opinion. That's why you're here.
Where's your feelings,
You
Goose?
don't know.
I just don't know.
Yeah.
No, I kind
So
of
there
agree
came
with
a time, though,
John
where
there.
you began to
view
realize
what you want to view. Like, it's like the best deception is being like right in the open, right? Like that's how you, like, the best con artists are like, so people will see what they want to see or what they're being told what they saw. So like how much truth is there to a lot of this? I mean, and for the skulls, like, even like knowing the indigenous backgrounds, like indigenous peoples, like they had a lot of skulls, but like they it was a lot of animal skulls, but they were like like they were molded to like in water and stuff like that. Even the Vikings did a lot of crazy shit with skulls and bones and stuff like that. So I mean, it depends on what you want to believe. I just sometimes I just have a hard time with a lot of this stuff. So
Try to help you out with that third one, buddy. But
no, I do. Yeah, weird temples, drawings of female orgasm, stuff everywhere. It's his mystery.
Gotta be intuitive. Gotta be intuitive.
and
thank you, John.
this was something else.
Well, let me add to. We also know of circumstances, and you'll speak to some of my teammates here, where we did recover things that were exotic in nature in the sky, and we know they were classified craft, and we recovered them and took them back to where they go, and that was a.
Yeah, I don't know if that is or not.
So there are things that
The official narrative is they don't know where the hell it is, but they do admit that they have craft of other world origins, material of other world origins. So they do say it's extraterrestrial, as in not of this fucking planet.
It's but for a 5 or 10% that is the most outrageous and exciting time of your life. But the majority of what we see and do is explainable and is ordinary and is known by many people and is not classified. But there is a certain percentage which is extremely sensitive, and that extremely sensitive bit does include what we know is our own man-made advanced technology. And we work to our recovery efforts. If this is where we're going with the conversation, when we look at a recovery mission or a crash recovery team, you don't put together a team like that.
But they did change it to anomalous phenomenon. Anomalous phenomenon, because it does go transmedium.
Conduct a recovery mission for a number of objects and craft.
No, that's true, student God.
But in the rare occasion, or let's say the hypothetical occasion, something of a non-human origin or source were to interface with the ground, you would deploy that same team. And that is the segue and how we got involved with this particular subject.
So
he's going to jump into the whole egg conversation.
You were involved in a retrieval of non-human technology, alien tech.
So it became very clear the first time we recovered something that was non-human in origin.
I can't remember who brought it up in the chat, but yeah, NHI, it doesn't necessarily mean alien. It could be AI, right? It's just non-human intelligence. Now, that's kind of interesting that you brought that up in the chat. And this guy continuously points it to, like, you know, non-human intelligent, i.e. alien. Alien to what? Like, the word alien has been abused to the point where you say it and you think of, like, what? Gray, little gray, little green men or whatever. You think of like an alien creature, when that might not even be the actual definition of what they consider as an alien these days, you know, with everything.
The thing about this interview that I'm noticing is that he's not really being interviewed. He's kind of taking over the interview and directing the interview where it wants to go. If you watch his he's very rehearsed in the way he's speaking.
100%.
And his eye, like he's aware of his eyes, like, because like if you jet up and right, like it's an indication that you're deceitful or you're lying, right? So, and I think he's very cognizant of that, and he's like doing his best to make it believable. Now, I'm not saying he's lying, but like to me, it's like he sounds like a grifter, a con man to me for some reason. Like he's just. Like he knows how to, like he's a businessman, obviously.
That's
so
the
he
point,
knows
Gooch. They want you to think that, so that way you dismiss everything. So when they do the real thing, they can't fucking win. If they tell you the truth, you'll think it's a conspiracy. If it's a conspiracy, you'll think it's the truth.
But talk is cheap. Talk
right,
is
but
cheap.
that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
You will know us by the fruits of our labor.
Yeah, it actually is funny that you say that, Badger, because he pulls that line out later on.
He said it earlier. I'm quoting him.
Oh, he did say it. Okay.
Yeah, he said it. Yeah, he said that.
You know, I agree with you to a point, Gooch, in that manner. Like when I listened to this interview, it was very fascinating to me because there was a lot of things that kind of confirmed, right? Or like if you're not deep into it, right? If you're just kind of getting into it and you're hearing rumors, blah blah blah, you listen to this interview and he kind of comes off, if you're just listening instead of watching it, believable. You know, he quotes a lot of Bible stuff. He says like, "Oh, I don't know this stuff. I can't speak on the things I don't know." Blah blah blah. Things that would make you think that he's telling the truth. But there is a big part of me that's like, I don't trust anything that is coming out, especially on social media, especially News Nation. I don't really know what that is, to be honest with you. But a big interview like that is allowed. If this stuff was really real and they really needed to cover this up, and they didn't want the public to know, this kind of stuff wouldn't be getting out. So that I always have a red flag up when this kind of stuff drops and people are like, "Oh, did you hear this interview? Are they talking about this now? Or they discovered this?" I'm like, but are they really?
But here's the genius of it all, dear Joe. Like, people sit there and get pissed off like some of the things that Donald Trump will say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he will say something like, in whatever view you have on him, but he'll say the most radical thing, and the news fixates on that.
Right.
But behind the scenes, he's signing papers in the background, and then pushing, laws or bills through, and without any news covering it, right? So again, this could be coming out to, be a shield for something else that's happened behind the curtain that everyone's just like, and then when it finally,
no one cares.
Revealed.
No one knows about this. I care about this shit, and I didn't realize this was happening. They literally announced that they have alien fucking craft made with materials not from this earth, and no one cared because we're busy with other things.
That, and I think people are so used to being deceived, right? So the whole alien craze popped up in like what, the 50s, when it like really kind of took off,
right? Overdrive after the nuclear testing and started seeing, and then Roswell is the most commonly cited,
And then most people grow up with the quote unquote fake videos, because you can say anything's debunked, right? It's just like, oh, it's been debunked, it's debunked. But you grow up, just programmed that anything you see, whether it's video or whatever, that it is fake, right? So when something actually starts coming out and Fox News covers something, right? I remember when Fox News like a year ago or 2 years ago were dropping like these reports of whatever. Yeah, nobody cared. Nobody I knew was talking about it, because I think it's just something you are programmed to be like, whatever, it's fake.
I mean,
until an alien craft,
right? That's what I'm saying. I remember the Phoenix Lights before there was AI or fucking good cell phones and all that, and everyone saw that shit. It was caught on cameras.
But even they tried to debunk that by saying that it was like some kind of military jump.
They sure did. And the governor came out dressed like an alien. You know what he says now? He fucking saw it too. They made him do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of stuff, but I'm just like, I think that's why a lot of people just, you're right. There's so many other things going on in life right now to focus on. And again, if you were going to release a truth, and this is me playing, I'm jumping on both sides of the argument here, just as my brain works. If you're going to release anything that's actually a truth, the best way to do it is when everyone is distracted by something else. And they have done so much over the last 10 years to distract everybody about something else. So if they're really going to put something out there, and this is a great test to be like, who actually cares? And the response of the people is going to show them who cares. And so far, like you said, Badger, nobody cares.
We're not big on aliens right now. In fact, we're doing a whole thing of getting rid of them. So we don't.
That is the truth. That is the truth.
That, guys. Come back in the right way. You too, Zeta Reticuli.
It was precisely what we were dealing with. Our communications changed. Our communication process and procedure was modified. It was also clear to everyone on the team that what we were dealing with was something that was unexpected versus expected. And then just visually looking at the object on the ground, you could tell it was extraordinary and anomalous. It was not human.
How close did you get?
Well, I was a helicopter pilot, and I operate with a 150 foot to 200 foot long line. So I got within 150 feet of this object.
What did you see?
I saw an egg, a white egg.
Inertial dampeners?
I would say
inertial dampeners.
20 feet plus or minus a little bit, about the size of a large SUV.
Did it have any seams?
All right, you're talking about the egg.
And it was pure white.
It was like pearly white, like a metallic.
Let me see if I can find a picture.
And as Bob Lazar describes the craft that he worked on, they all seem to be 3D printed. There's no seams whatsoever.
He's flying in the sky, if you like, in broad daylight.
So you actually saw it in the sky.
I have to watch that interview. I haven't seen that, but
we've already begun work.
It's an old school one. It's just a consistent story that sort of lines up. That 30 years ago, he's telling this story about gravitic drives and element.
After seeing
very concise with what is being revealed now.
Something that was ridiculously looking. It's inconsistent with anything I'd ever seen before. I can also tell you that the reaction by my team, who was very experienced, was atypical. we changed we modified our entire process for recovery that night. Our communication process changed. We all knew we were dealing with something extraordinary. In addition to that, it has also been verified by me, by high-ranking members of the UAP task force, that what we recovered that night was in fact known NHI craft.
So the implications of that are actually quite shocking. It means the government's lying to us, which shouldn't come as any surprise to us, but we're being lied to.
I can't comment on that because I don't know what the government knows. This operation, yeah, I just can't comment to that because.
Do you think it's possible that?
Here's the thing: when everyone says the government, I think if you just watch X-Files, which tells the complete truth about all this stuff, there are organizations beyond the government, right? So you can be in government. Balls. Yeah, you can be in government and not know a damn thing about this because it has nothing to do with government. That's when you jump into it. If you really want to believe these things, a lot of these senators are like, I've seen this, or I haven't seen this, or I don't know, because they legitimately don't know unless they're
There's
coming
a fun little show with 10 seasons called Stargate SG-1 that literally is a fucking documentary at this point, complete to and up to disclosure, compartmentalized. Only certain senators know, only certain parts of other governments know. It's very slowly released, and they release disinformation and fake TV shows when we get real disclosure, people go, ha 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 ha. You mean like The Thing? Yeah.
I was just gonna, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. We've seen it for years through movies and TV now.
So the idea is just like, who's they? It's like, well, it's the secret organization, and then like maybe the president, probably not even him.
Right.
It's these motherfuckers that don't have to get reelected.
Illuminati.
Sure. Which is just the rich controlling businesses that pass this shit. The captains of industry. Raytheon, Boeing, all those fun people.
Yeah.
Templars, Assassin's Creed.
Templars.
Same shit.
I agree.
There are even
Jack O'Neill knows
in the Pentagon who aren't aware of what you know.
Absolutely. There are senior people in all branches of
There's like 4 Stargate operations. That's the joke.
So
which one is real now?
Ryder speaks at a press briefing in the Pentagon and says there is no evidence of extraterrestrial visitation or engagement with planet Earth. He might actually be telling the truth because he hasn't been read in like you.
Correct.
Now you have what's called, I understand, a top secret SCI clearance. You have compartmented intelligence clearance to certain programs.
Tell us what that means.
My clearance is given like as needed basis. So like when I go, it's not like I go, there's no record of me having top secret clearance anywhere.
I was just saying, tell us what that means, Jake.
In the documents that you've shown,
he's need to know, but when he needs to know, he can be told.
A NATO top secret clearance. And what does that mean?
That means you are cleared to the highest level that you need to be in order to function in the capacity that you've been assigned on a particular mission.
And it's quite a high clearance.
It's a very high clearance.
And so the best effort was done to secure your cover, and as part of protecting that cover, it wasn't allowed to be known that you had high clearances. But what you have been able to demonstrate to us is that you were, in fact, given high clearances as part of your role.
Yeah, the clearances kind of accompanied me like a shadow. If I got deployed on a particular mission, let's use an aircraft, an HVT mission, for example.
High value target.
High value target. I spent a lot of time in the 90s living out of a hotel room at Pope Air Force Base with a pager. That was our technology back then. So I'll give you a short story that'll tie this together. So a typical situation for me would be told to go stay at the lodging on base, and I could travel to the chow hall, I could travel to the gym, but I had to stay within that response area. We would have a sealed aircraft. A sealed aircraft is an aircraft that has been configured and swept, and then a metal seal goes on the door, to where if that door is open or broken, we know someone has entered that aircraft in a non-authorized capacity. So we'd have a sealed aircraft there. If we got dispatched, I would go to an aircraft. There would be manifests that go with that aircraft that would list all the crew members, their security clearances, and a rough description as to the mission. At those times, the crew would be briefed, security clearances would be issued to that crew. And anytime I was on a HVT mission that was highly sensitive, I would operate under what is known as a NATO top secret security clearance. And there are documents, a few documents that I was able to make copies of that show that.
And indeed, the document that you showed us shows very clearly that you and the pilot were the only people on board the plane that had a NATO top secret clearance.
Yeah, and probably the reason he was assigned is because I was there. So not to sound arrogant, but the fact that I was being deployed on that mission.
So fucking shady. Not for the reason you're thinking. I'm thinking that
require that clearance.
It's part of the reason why they keep.
It's funny with these interviews, they're always like, the things that you have shown us or the things that we've seen, which they can't show us because of, reasons, but they can give you a narrative, as they are
my highly compartmentalized, scrubbed plane where everyone doesn't know what everyone's doing, so I can go fucking kidnap someone in my high value target capacity. And then have plausible deniability because I have no actual identity outside of floating around. Yeah. This is what happened to Bob Lazar too, by the way. And then you get unpersoned when you go private.
Oh, gotcha. I got to check that out.
If you ever did decide to speak publicly.
Yeah. Here's a funny thing. Like the U.S. government can make a bunch of rules in order to
create
something that keeps things intact, but they make a bunch of rules so that they can break them and hack the system and get around them. It provides great obscurity to create the rules that separate the known from the unknown. And I want to add one comment here is when we're talking about circumstances like the first time we recovered a UAP, which was the flying egg.
And you know what? I have heard of the Nazi belt, by the way. Hitler was super into
Oh,
the
yeah.
cult and aliens, and it's like an out of phase
operated
teleportation thing.
When that shows up, you're instantly
Yeah,
on a top secret
that's another
classified
interesting
situation,
subject to go
regardless of
down.
clearance.
So before you flew out that day to go and do the recovery of the egg, what were you told?
Yeah, Hitler and the Nazis,
I
they
was
got
told
into
that
a
we
lot
were
of
going out to do our normal thing. We're going to
a lot
provide
of
fun
security,
things. Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
A lot of
transport
things,
crew, and
especially
we're doing our
down
normal
in
ring work.
You
basements
weren't
with
told
human
that this was
beings.
an anomalous
Well,
craft
that
was
too.
clearly of non-human origin.
No, and I
Yeah.
But no, he
genuinely
was also
believe
super into like the
no one
occult and
else
the spiritual
knew
and
this.
Yeah.
aliens and.
I think it was a shock to everyone.
And at no stage were you ever
That's
subsequently
how
told
that's how we got
was of non-human
defibrillators
origin.
for crying out
No.
loud.
How do you know it wasn't human? How do you know that you
I'm
don't
serious.
have top secret
That's
tech?
how we got
Hey man, someone had to
like
do
me?
it. Thank you
Right.
for the
Well,
thing. Sorry,
I'll tell
rest
you
in
that
peace.
Yeah.
because of the reaction of my leadership structure and because of my experience working in that capacity, everyone involved was convinced that what we were seeing and dealing with was, in fact,
By the way,
exotic
Stalin
and
too. If
important.
you want to throw
I'll
around blame,
also
they did
tell
a
you
bunch of
that during the
experimentation.
process
Just
over the
saying.
last couple
Yes,
years,
yeah,
it's been confirmed
yeah.
to me by ranking members of the UAP task force
True.
that what we were working with that night was in fact NHI, and it was not a unique experience. The egg, as we're referring to, is known by, and there have been many others that have encountered this type of craft in our atmosphere, outside of our atmosphere, broad day, nighttime, all over the place.
You got a good look at this object, didn't you?
Yeah.
Was there any visible propulsion
Yeah.
system on it?
No, not what we would know. There's no engine. There was no thermal signature. I was operating at night when I finally came in to pick it up. So I'm working under night vision goggles at the time. And it was quite clear. I flipped them up, flipped them down, and looked at it a couple of different ways.
Was there a thermal signature?
There was not a thermal signature.
So it wasn't hot?
No.
No. You know, the general laws of thermodynamics, you know, if an object's been flying or driving an engine, it's going to show heat, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yes. Yeah.
So how do you think that object was being propelled?
Well, that's a great question that we're looking forward to exploring with our new venture.
So when you went back to base,
Tune in for that.
was it the sort of job
Keeps
where you could go to your
talking
bosses
about
and say,
that.
hey, listen, what was
Yeah.
that object
Oh,
that I
he's
picked up that's strange?
he's
Can you
definitely
think there?
selling
No,
it.
that's not quite how it works. When I go
See, you
back
have
to
element
what you would call my
115 in
base,
the
when I go back to
reactor.
our
You
facility, that's
bombard
back
it with
to my normal
radiation. It
working
produces a
Yeah.
gravitic
business,
field.
and the people that are involved there have
Then you have
no idea what's going on
amplifiers and
when
you
I'm,
aim it where you want to
holding
go.
myself out for work for the government.
This
this
also
is
creates
how the
time
compartmentalization
displacement where you
system
are, so you
works.
don't go
It's a
splat
need
against
to
the
know.
wall.
There was no
There
need
you
for
go.
people that you were working with to know, so they weren't briefed in.
Yes.
And you only found out incidentally because you saw it on the range.
Right.
So let's keep on going. That's twigged your interest. For the first time, you've seen something that does appear
Does it say if he touched it?
genuinely anomalous. When was the next
I don't think
occasion
he ever
when
touched
you
it.
became aware of anomalous non-human
Because
technology?
Bob says when
There
they
is
try to
another
touch it, there's
craft that
just
we
something
recovered that
stopping
I
them
can talk
from
about,
actually
and that
touching it. You can
craft
get only so
was what we
close,
refer
and there's
to,
like a magnetic force that
as an
stops you,
eight-gon.
like when you're
An
pushing
eight-gon
two
is,
magnets together.
basically a disc-shaped
Really?
object that
When it's on, when the reactor's running.
That's interesting. So he does a lot of the recovery. I can't remember. We'll find out as we listen if he actually touched it or not. But they obviously someone had to pick this thing up and
I mean,
and
unless they
fly
used
away.
like a fucking drone with a
I guess.
a MALP or something, like a physical thing that was going to touch it, like a bomb disposal type thing, but not.
So he's going to talk about when he gets to it, the experience he had. And this is where it kind of gets into this weird realm. Like we're talking about, Badger, if you were into this for just like the ancient aliens, or if you're coming from it from a spiritual point of view or a different point of views, he almost covers like all
Which you have to, yeah.
all in this. And he gets into like the experience he had doing this, and like, because he never met an entity, never met an angel or an alien, but he had like, there was a presence that he talks about that he kind of meets. So it gets kind of interesting at that point.
has 8 different symmetrical sections that are delineated by some form of ridge.
Let me back that up, because he did talk about different craft here.
Keep
that
on
he's
going.
seen.
That's twigged your interest. For the first time, you've seen something that does appear genuinely anomalous. When was the next occasion
Probably.
when you became aware of anomalous non-human technology?
Well, there's another craft that we recovered that I can talk about, and that craft was what we referred to as an 8-gon. An 8-gon is basically a disc-shaped object that, when viewed from the top, has 8 different symmetrical sections that are delineated by some form of ridge.
So it's an octagon-shaped disc.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, by any chance, was there a nickname for the egg?
Yeah, the egg we actually called Manus, like from the Mork and Mindy show from the 70s, because it's ridiculous. That's exactly what it looked like. And so it's funny when you look back at what may have been the motivation for the 1970s, because where else would they? An egg is a ridiculous idea for a guy from Mort from Ork, right? So you have Mort from Ork who flew to Earth in an egg. It surely gives credit to the idea that some like to think that perhaps there was a PR program that utilized our fascination with Hollywood and television to paint pictures of actual fact as fiction.
There it is right there, Badger.
You could call faction.
So what time of day or night was it when you came across the octagonal object, the 8 gone?
We did recovery on that both day and night.
So talk me through it. What happens? You're in your chopper?
Yeah, I'm in my chopper.
What sort of chopper?
At the time, it was a Bell 212, which is the same as a UHN1. It's a twin-engine, twin-bladed Bell helicopter.
You're flying at night?
Flying at night, yeah.
What time at night?
Oh, God. I don't remember. Like after midnight.
Have you been given any pre-flight briefing?
I'm the one who would be given the briefing, but we are given a loadout on the particular object. That when you're flying an external load, we designate 2 different sites. One's called the drop site, one's called the pick site, you could say. The pick site is where the payload is that you're flying in to pick up. As you're making your first trip into the pick site, the payloads are already rigged and manifested for you to prepare them for flight. When you're en route to that object, you're given some basic information like weight estimates, size estimates. And there's 2 objects that I'm here to talk about. One was the egg, the other is what we called an 8-gon. The 8-gon was
it's interesting that the interview just changes there.
Delineated sections when looking down. And I can tell you what it looked like from looking down because that's primarily how I saw it because I'm a helicopter pilot. We did recoveries with the 8-gons. There was more than
like
one.
They took them off camera for some reason.
It made its way to the ground on this particular operation. And the recovery was done at night and then more was done in the day. Because of where we operate, sometimes things can make their way into the steep terrain. The terrain where we operate is the highest mountain range in the whole United States. And so the decision was made to wait till daylight to recover some of the
highest mountain range
was brought down or made its way to the ground. During the recovery of the object at nighttime, I make my way in the helicopter from where we configure the line and we fly to where
that's probably
what we call the pick site. There's 2 locations. We designate them pick site, drop site. Drop site at the delivery location. We have a crew both at the pick site and the drop site on the ground. The pick team configures the cargo for flight.
So whatever it is, the craft is sitting in a sling waiting for your helicopter.
Yeah, it's sitting. We have these things called pumpkins, which are like rubberized bags or containers. And from my point of view, that it was covered in a pumpkin, at least from the bottom and the sides. This is one of the most profound experiences I've ever had in my life. I'm about to share with you, so bear with me. This is for me when it became clear.
Before he gets into that, if you guys haven't seen the video, it's a video of a top-down view of them moving this thing that looks like a friggin' egg. In fact, I saw somebody do a spoof video when this came out online of them having a string with an egg attached to it in a harness. Because that's exactly what it looks like. It looks like a friggin' egg. No doubt about it. This thing is supposed to be 20 feet long, whatever. If you look at pictures online about it that they've taken, it looks just like an egg that you would see in a grocery store or in your refrigerator making breakfast in the morning. Supposedly it's got some hieroglyphics on it, which is interesting. I don't know if that's real or not, but the video it's hard to tell if it's real. It's crazy. When I first saw it, I was like, man, this is absolutely fake, and then you get a slew of people doing breakdowns of that video on YouTube, like, oh, this is real because of this, we changed, this screen and blah, blah, blah. The video itself, I think it doesn't look real to me, but this interview was really interesting and where he goes from this point on when he starts talking about the experience that he had with this thing and what it's doing to him to this day, I guess, apparently. So this is kind of where it gets more interesting for me.
Closer to this pick site, I start feeling odd. I start feeling extremely emotional. And the closer I get, the more the emotion starts to overwhelm me. And
what do you feel? What's the emotion?
I feel a sense of my mother. I don't know how else to explain it. I feel this intense hybrid of sadness and happiness and beauty and song. And it was very disruptive to me because I had a very practical responsibility at the time to operate a helicopter in the mountains at night. And I began wondering what was wrong with me. It was late. Am I just stressed? Am I tired? Am I marinating in cortisol and estrogen? I don't know.
Estrogen.
But as I came over this object for the pick, there was this overwhelming sense of emotion.
What's it saying?
So how would you purify water in case of a blackout?
How do you purify water?
All right. Let me put you back over here. There we go.
I have a hard time with this guy.
Tell me what you're feeling.
Well, this is going to get a little bit more interesting. So this is what I thought was the most interesting part of this interview was what he talks about his experience with this presence. And this is where I kind of lean more into the spiritual aspect of things. And Badger, you'll see what I'm talking about when we were talking about before.
Yeah, everyone knows there's an alien being with psychic powers inside, not a fucking spiritual. But that's fine. I'll go with the religious aspect if you want. I found the egg, if you want, that has the hieroglyphics that everyone is saying.
Yeah, let me bring it up.
Share my screen.
Great picture. Yeah, there we go. So,
and then that's
apparently this is legit. Yeah, here we go. There's the yeah. So somebody went in and identified that, and I blew it up on my phone and was looking at it. Apparently, if that is real, you have all these symbols on there.
And the helicopter literally looks like it's just winched up a big fucking egg and it's flying.
100% is what it looks like.
What it looks like. So yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
It's that's why like the video itself, I was just like, I originally ignored it, until I saw people talking about it and saw this interview. So I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna check it out because this kind of stuff interests me.
They also commonly refer to these things that they find as donations.
Oh, yeah, there you go. What? Okay. About the egg, something that is interesting when he goes into this whole thing, which makes me kind of think of deities, right? Ishtar was a Babylonian god, I believe, the god of fertility or sex or something like that. But her thing was the egg. Now, I don't know if you guys know anything about.
It's what Easter comes from. The thing
supposedly,
you're going to find out is the more religions you go back, the more you're going to find the similarities in God. And I'm afraid to say there's a lot of people that have been born to a virgin mother and are resurrected. It's quite a common pattern that keeps told over and over again. So somewhere down there is some solid truth to a story that keeps being told over and over. It's just what version and when.
Right. Yeah. And that's a a completely different subject when you're getting into that, because and that's a fascinating subject as well. But it made me think of the goddess Ishtar when it came to this, because there was some stories, if you go back in different lore, depending on who you'd listen to, that she even came down in an egg in one of the stories, And so as soon as I heard him talking about this, I saw the egg and started thinking about it. I was like, man, it's kind of, if you're going to disclose any kind of truth and push towards anything, if you have any knowledge of the past, conspiracy past, whatever you want to call it, this is the first stuff that kind of pops in my head. And I'm like, all right, if you believe that angels could be, or the aliens could be demons or angels or some kind of spiritual entity, it's really interesting when you start tying something like this, that you're discovering this egg, and you start thinking of these older deities that were described to be associated with the eggs, So that was one of the things that kind of just sparked in my mind. I was like, that's, it might not be related, but it's really interesting nonetheless. So if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, go look up Ishtar.
Like I said, it was an overwhelming sense of sadness, happiness.
Is it your feeling? Are you suddenly having a mental breakdown on the job?
No, I felt like something connected with me. I felt like something had tuned in to me and my soul and was providing me some sense of guidance on what to do and how profound what I was doing was. And it was so overwhelming that I began to cry. And
I can't imagine crying at nighttime with night vision goggles is the healthiest way to fly a job.
No, it is not. And then I'm confused as to why I'm crying at the same time. And then do I abort the mission? So I just did my best to focus on my particular cues when doing this type of work. And I got the load hooked up and I began flying away. And once it was just me and that object in between the pick and the drop site, there's about 20 miles in between, I felt like something was inside of me. I felt like I was possessed by the most beautiful spirit I'd ever been possessed by.
Oh, okay.
Was it loving?
Loving. But there was a sense of sadness at the same time. And
it's first time doing ecstasy.
Had you ever had an experience like this before?
No, it was a very feminine energy. I'll tell you that. It felt like the spirit of God, but not in any masculine sense that I'd ever felt. It was like
it's Ishtar.
The feeling of my mother, and my daughter, and beauty. And it wasn't like a soul, it was like a frequency that I was connected with.
Was it scared?
This also a plot point in Dawn of the Jedi comic series, by the way.
To figure out why that happened. I don't want to say that because I have a pretty good idea of what's going on now. And whatever that force was since that night, it has
he said force.
There it is.
As crazy as it sounds, it's what's guiding me now. And it's what's providing protection for me.
Protection?
Do you think it's made you a better person?
Yeah. So he says this in a second, but the interviewer asks him about if he's worried about talking about this stuff, and he says no, because he feels protected by this thing. Now, if we can blow off what he's saying is complete just gibberish garbage, right? Or if you just want to look at it for a second.
It's like destiny. It's the traveler. It'll protect him with the traveler's light. If he gets superpowers, I'm believing in the egg.
Right. A lot of what he's talking about, I have seen when you start doing research of spiritual encounters, not of malevolent forces, but like a deceptive force. They always come in this like it makes you feel amazing, it makes you feel
sounds like
emotional.
You just did DMT, because that's what everyone does when you do. Oh, I felt overwhelming love and acceptance, and
right. But that was when he was saying that, it really kind of triggered my thought process on this, because he's saying this thing is, he feels like it's still with him. To me, that's more like a possession aspect than it is anything else. And they talk about like psychic aspects of these beings, because everyone wants to think that angels or whatever are more psychic.
But what was happening during that flight? Was it a difficult? Like, was it extremely stressful flight?
It was like Echo, where she was cleansing his matriarchal trauma.
But you got to put a lot of things in the. I mean, the human body acts like differently in different situations, right? So if he's like
no, he already established that he's done these a billion times. He gets high value targets, he gets objects or things or people, whatever the fuck, he does it all the time.
Flying at night.
And this time was different.
Yes.
This time he felt an overwhelming connection to the object.
Because he didn't have a connection with the other object, the octagon one that he picked up, but this one, this egg. And that's, again, like I said, there's been so much attention on the egg. I'm surprised that you haven't actually like seen a lot of it, because there's been so many, like, this came out, the egg came out, this came out, other people are talking about the egg. Like, I feel like, why is there so much attention being put on this?
Well, it said one day ago. I was busy with Daddy Trump correcting the timeline and all the other things of the fires and all the other. But yeah, this would have made its way onto my radar for sure. I'm also waiting for actual disclosure that's supposed to be happening.
Right. And we'll see what actually happens with that, if it happens. I'm still not convinced we're going to see anything of any kind of importance disclosed. I think anything they'll talk more about the man-made stuff and top secret things they can't really tell us about, but a lot of stuff we're going to see in the sky or have seen in the sky, they're probably going to say has been man-made. And I wouldn't be surprised. Look at the drone technology, look at the technology. They're probably, what they say, about 50 years ahead of us with the stuff that we get to see. What they release to us is one of the old conspiracy thought processes of the technology that they have already established. So the other worldly beings, I don't know. I really don't think we're going to see anything. And if they do, I got to really question why they're disclosing that, because I'm on the lookout, as always, for a bigger deception in this world.
I just watched Starship Troopers, so I need an outside enemy. I would love to know there's a bunch of alien races that we could band together and go kick their ass. Helldivers, let's spread some democracy, people. We need to get this economy going.
That would be the way to do it.
It has made me a more sensitive and aware person, which I think all of us would be better people.
Oh, God.
So that was a moment when you became aware of, at the very least, a technology that had the capacity to touch you remotely, telepathically. Now, telepathy, we are told.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Outside influence.
What happened after you flew the object in the sling to presumably the drop-off zone?
Once I made the drop, before I got there, I was really scared that I was going to have to stop flying and punch this thing off because I was so distracted.
I feel you, John.
Like, well, crap, now we've got another recovery site. Now we're going to recover this. I'm going to have to virtually land. I don't know. So it took everything I had in me at the time to get to my drop site, and I delivered this. Oddly enough, no one in my crew reported having similar effects from this. I do not believe there was a being in that craft. I've come to understand now, after being involved with other parts of the programs that are tested on the range, that there is a known and research implemented emotional or psychic, or what we call a psionic component to the research and development of the UAP program.
There's a psionic resonance.
It's very confronting for our audience to hear this, but you think that
that's exactly where they go
about yourself as a result of that experience, that you might in fact have abilities that you were never aware of.
There it is. You
motherfuckers.
He had Taco Bell
Superpowers.
The night before, and he's feeling it.
Move an object, buddy. Go ahead. Move an object, guess a number, pick a fucking lottery, bit. Do something.
Now, I believe
accurately guess the mood of your wife. Do something that makes me think that you have superpowers and you're empathetic. Or whatever connection he has. Is he like McLeod now at the end of Highlander? He can connect all men. And understand what are we doing?
No, actually, I absolutely believe that abilities like that exist. Not to, they've been, abused as far as like TV stuff. I do believe that there is some kind of clairvoyance or whatever you want to call it that exists within people. But some of the stuff he's talking about in this that he's about to get into, the psionic stuff, I don't know. This is the first time I really kind of heard somebody speak about this kind of stuff in relation to the UAPs or whatever. So, you know, it gets interesting.
I know in my childhood, if we look back to when I was a kid, I sincerely believe that the screening I went through in high school, you know, my grandparents are, when I was a kid, the reason I joined the military is real simple. I wanted to jump out of airplanes and kill bad guys and make my grandparents proud.
Oh, yeah.
And
Good for him.
my grandparents were the most amazing people I've ever met. You know, they grew up during the Great Depression, dealt with World War II. And my grandfathers particularly were the strongest and the most sensitive men I've ever met, all wrapped up into one person. We can call that word a lot. An Army grandpa, let's say. So
sensitive.
Navy grandpa was a very influential naval officer who's actually a member of the SEAL's predecessors, the Scouts.
It's what this thing made him feel.
Was an Army captain.
He's much more sensitive now.
Yeah,
they both found
he's going to be breastfeeding cats.
To our church together. Unfortunately, you know, their children, my parents were very loving people, but made a lot of bad decisions. This led to step families for me at a very young age. And to get away from the abusive environment, I spent a lot of time outside. I would tell my mom I'm going to my dad's house. I'd tell my dad I'm going to my mom's house, and I'd bug out and just go live outside.
You were living in the bush somewhere.
Yeah, essentially I was homeless, but you know, I just told myself
he's a liar. He's been a liar since he was a child. He
lied
to his parents. You could do it if you wanted to, Gooch. I saw it. I made the joke.
Come on, like
a pretty high level of independence.
On a job interview, you don't tell the truth about stealing before, right? You say, of course, I've never stolen.
Right, exactly.
They got me involved with an art program and a music program. I'll have to tell you, so my Navy grandfather, he was the superintendent. He got his doctorate in education. And by the time I had graduated high school, he had retired as a superintendent of our school district. So he's a very influential man.
And I understand he ran the gifted and talented education program for that school district.
Yeah, you could say he was the ambassador for this area for the GATE program, which was a program for gifted and talented kids. And my personal experience with that was great. It was
now he'd said something earlier in the interview that
at least twice
he never experienced anything as a kid, but then he talks about this
a staff member
kind of odd upbringing
a lot of games with me inside and
they went through.
We ran a number of creative.
Yes,
I heard the other thing too.
And outside of that, I also after school I would attend. I had a private art teacher. I learned music, and so I felt like I had a unique education experience as a kid. My grandfather also got me involved in water polo and swimming. He was a diver and a swimmer.
Like a bald Tony Robbins.
Became a great outlet for me. I found the competition and the physical exhaustion.
Now that you mention it,
this is the most privileged homeless kid I've ever seen in my life.
Right?
Voluntarily, it's.
We look into my high school year.
You have no choice. It's homeless. If you choose it, it's camping.
I got in a lot of trouble when I did show up to school. I was a bit disruptive in class. I had a smart mouth. I liked being a class clown. And I got in a lot of fights. And by the time my senior year came around, I was the varsity goalie on our water
polo team.
Mike
Tyson.
5 weeks into
I won the heavyweight title.
For fighting.
Then I went on to the UFC and
my accumulation
win that title.
Throughout high school.
Talk about the egg.
Interesting. And it was a one and done fail situation. And 5 weeks into my senior year, I was expelled. At this time, my grandparents decided to hold an intervention. And I don't even think my parents or step parents know, but the two men got together and met with me and decided to research military programs that would be available at that time. And so we made several trips down to UCLA to an office near there. And I began going through a series of tests of all kinds. There were physical, physiological, psychological, creative tests. And
we said nothing happened to him when he was a kid.
Pretty typical.
You know now, don't you, that the US Air Force has been secretly testing people through the GATE program for certain psychic abilities?
Yes.
Were you tested?
Yes.
Do you think that might have played a part in what happened to you that night when you were recovering that craft?
Yeah.
Now we're getting into some Stranger Things kind of stuff.
That I'll tell you, I know others that I've come to meet through the program that we'll talk about that were in a psionic program that have a very similar backstory. But for whatever reason, I was not used in that way. Again, my creativity and intuition resulted in, as I've shared with you before, being used for creative war games, being very creative in war games. But
Gooch, you don't understand. There's gonna be a movie made about this guy at some point. You know how interesting it all is.
What I use is intuition. If we make a spectrum, we put intuition on the conservative side. Let's say the right side of the scale. On the more far outside, that might be something that looks a lot like telepathy or telekinesis. And we call this psionics, which we can talk about. And so I knew I was intuitive. I knew I was creative. And I also
staring at goats.
And so
he's the Dasaki's man.
Becoming a red team expert.
He's the most interesting man in the world.
And creativity is what made me successful in that capacity.
I'm quite
No,
struck by
his
how many
innate psychic ability allows
special
him to
operations
connect
soldiers,
with
when
the
they
egg of
That's what
Ishtar,
it
as
is.
we'll call it.
Situation
I
where they're facing
understand.
imminent
Yes.
This is a lot.
Because it was only him.
And now his psychic
precognition.
resonance has
They
been
knew something
activated,
was
and
about
he's
to
on
happen.
another plane.
Does it happen to
All
you?
right.
His
Yeah,
third eye.
I would say that I have
It's been
an
open.
ability to make good
It's been
decisions,
opened,
short term
yeah.
and long term. I
Don't
also
confuse
drink
that with his
cakes,
brown
you could
eye,
say.
which is
Shoveling
the shit right now.
Yeah.
Tend to make very wise decisions.
And is that a quality that you recognize in a lot of your colleagues in
Yeah.
special operations?
Yeah, you might be interested to know that people at an elite operator level, there's a lot of them that are left-handed. A lot of them that were artists as kids or still are very good drawers,
I was
illustrators.
an artist
Damn
as a kid.
Those
They're
damn
also-
lefties.
I was an artist as I'm righty, but like I could be exposed. Listen, I do believe that there is more to the human brain, more to the human makeup that we have probably forgot
Yep.
over centuries, of living and being dumbed down for various reasons. So it's not out of the blue for me to believe that what he's saying could possibly be true. There's just I'm just skeptical of an interview like this coming out, basically touching on everything that you kind of want to hear. And that's what I hear out of the interview. It's like everything that you want to hear.
This is actually Isu technology, and he has just enough of the Isu DNA in his body to connect with it. And it's just that's why the technology works for him and it doesn't work for others. Assassin's Creed explained this all very perfectly.
It's all coincidence. All coincidence.
See, they put it out there for everybody, which is another reason why nobody cares when you actually see it. It's like, oh, I saw this, I played this.
All the key buzzwords or phrases, like he's.
But Gooch, he told you about his grandparents.
Yeah.
Yes. They were part of the Illuminati, and
it does sound like that, right?
I disavow these cabals. I do. I don't know what's going on.
I'd have to actually do some research on this guy and see who he's connected with, and where he's come from, because I have never heard of this guy until this moment. But he says a lot of interesting stuff, and again, like if you are somebody that is prone to want to believe, without any discernment, this interview really kind of pulls you in and confirms a lot of stuff. So you can watch this interview and leave thinking everything you thought is true, and you're just waiting now for the aliens to reveal themselves, and then the life is going to change as we know it.
It's no different than the host of the Gong Show. I forget his name there. Saying he was a secret CIA agent and he was doing missions while he was the host of the Gong Show, and he wrote a book about it.
He wasn't.
He was, and it was so far out there that, but people believe it, and
interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, people are looking to believe things, right? Whether it's religion or whatever. Completely different topic, but just in general, if it's not religion, people want to believe in something.
Chuck Barris, thank you. Chuck
aliens,
service Chuck.
Yeah, so this kind of interview just plays right into anybody that's waiting to believe in this, to confirm what they believe is true, and to be, now we've got the declassifications coming, we're going to know the truth, all this kind of stuff is what I would assume someone's thinking out of this. And that just makes me wonder, of a deception being planted as we see it coming together, because for so long it was like, oh, these don't exist. This, you're crazy, tinfoil hats, all that kind of stuff. And now it's just like, oh yeah, we're discovering all this kind of stuff. It's getting out there. Everyone's getting into it. The reason why you go from one extreme to the other, in my opinion, over a period of time is because of control. There's something coming, some kind of deception where they want to control the people. That is my thought process with this entire thing. Not so much the whole alien discovery revelation in it.
They already control us. They don't have to do this. They already do it.
They already locked us. They just locked us in our homes for like
they did, but
algorithms.
Will that work again?
Yeah.
You think that will work again after the first time?
People are idiots and they're scared and they're only a little ballsy now because Daddy Trump won. But all it would take is a little bit of shaming and being called racist again. They'd go right back to it.
They were gearing up for that.
Obviously, not anyone in this chat. You all are smart, intelligent, independent thinking. But everyone else, absolute lemmings that would go right back to being told what to do.
No, I do agree with you on that. Yeah, there's definitely a portion that will do it. But I think that there's a lot of people that won't. And it's like the next step of control. You can't do the same thing over and over again. There's got to be a tweak on it, because it's like your immune system. You're going to get immune to something after a while. You have to introduce something new that's going to wreak havoc.
Sure.
And what better than some kind of alien revelation, that could come out and say, like, we created you. All religions are false. This or that. Move into the new world order. You know what I'm saying?
Look, they already have cochlear implants where just through stimulating the bones in your head, they can make you hear your own voice. Use AI to make you hear your own voice in your head. Look, you could have a fucking drone army that has a 3D Jesus that everyone sees all over the place. Then do your own voices. Everyone would hear it in your head. They could do a lot of different hoaxes if they wanted.
Project Bluebeam.
They could also just raise the price of eggs and gas and have us fighting about Star Wars being shitty.
Rosie, thank you for the $1.49 super sticker of a rose. Appreciate you. It was very awesome.
But was it a wrecked rose or a droopy rose?
Or a limp rose?
Very important context. If it was just standing straight and tall, that means he's feeling confident about that.
Good.
Yeah,
good.
Good, Roxy.
I like it. Keep the erection. I mean, the erect, do it.
Like, shut up.
Keep hard.
If you were to
ABF. Some people want to be in the Matrix. They love that steak.
Some Peaceful warriors, sensitive savages, you could say. That's a real thing. And
that's what Gucci is, a sensitive savage.
Serious goofballs.
No, that's not an Indian joke. That's not an Indian joke, just so you know.
I don't know if you could go as far as to say is the Big Blue Air Force and the Big Black Department of Defense knows what they're doing.
Rosie gifted one membership. Thank you.
Rossi. Oh, he doesn't like Rossi. Sorry, Ross. That was a close one.
We end up making our way there.
I can't read.
Sorry.
Picked up by John. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. It really means a lot to me. Thank you.
Hey there. You won't believe.
Yeah, that's how I.
There's ABF. That's ABF right there.
Proud to be an American. I wouldn't waste that much ammo. It's very expensive. Just go buy a fish.
Did you report the fact that you'd had that extraordinary?
Hell no.
Hell no, he didn't.
Because I didn't know what happened, and I don't want. You carry a lot of responsibility as a pilot. In this process, I've moved from being
thank Rossi for that,
with a tremendous amount of responsibility in day-to-day grind in this dimension, to a place where I've had to take into account and incorporate things that are basically metaphysical, and find a balance between the two, all while maintaining the trust that I could do my very pragmatic work. So this was something pretty new to me this night. And the last thing I'm going to do is go back and tell my team
that's what I mean.
There's
a lot of pressure on him, so like it's bound to come out at a certain point, at a certain age. So
anomalous incidents with craft.
Why does he still feel this way?
Why does he still? Because that's what the dam's been broken. Like now he's a sensitive, lactating beta male. So I don't know what you want.
So you thinking that the stuff that happened early on in his life affected this one mission?
I think
the egg.
Stress is a bitch. Stress is a motherfucker, and when you park that in the closet for decades, and when you have a job that is extremely stressful, and I don't know his personal life, but it sounded like he mentioned his daughter, but he didn't mention his wife. So there's some kind of divorce there, and he's
interesting.
Like when he starts talking to his mother, he starts to put everything together, and then it starts to come out.
I appreciate this. I don't know his life, but let me paint an exact painting of how he has a psychological break from this point onward, and it's also not contextualized to panic or it's a feeling of love and his mother and contentment. That's a very odd and specific psychological break that continued.
Well, yeah. I had that.
And you felt love and contentment.
I felt love for my kids. I felt like I felt my love for my Aunt Gladys. Right after all that came guilt, shame, everything that makes you feel awful. Like it's just it's just you have this hot euphoric high, and then you just drop, and then you become this. I want to say this, like the very depressive. Suicidal individual.
But is that what he's saying he's going through? Because it sounds like he's saying quite the opposite. That
he's trying to maintain, at that moment he's trying to maintain the job. So he doesn't know how to keep his emotions in check at that moment.
I'm with John. I might be having a psychological break right now.
Why
don't we see what he says?
Yeah, I would say this all happened a while ago, a few years back.
Clearly, these are objects that are being recovered that do not appear to be human technology.
So this is a good thing to talk about, because what we're dealing with is either non-human intelligence, if we want to use those words or that phrase or that acronym. It's either that, or we need to dramatically redefine what we think human intelligence is.
Because this object, whatever it was capable of communicating with you in your mind.
That object,
or just call it sentience, controlling that sapience, was also connecting to me through the mind, through my mind.
Now you learned, didn't you, that this was the tip of an iceberg. It wasn't just you.
Correct.
What did you learn?
Well, my work, coincidentally, shortly after that, led me in support of another particular part of the program, which deals directly with looking at this piece right here.
Doesn't challenge him on
anything. Is there
anything.
A component on?
It's a very friendly interview.
And the operation side of these non-human craft.
You can be friendly, but still challenge.
Or at least a field of consciousness that perhaps
it seems more of like a crafted interview.
Yes, it's a scripted interview.
Scripted, that's what I meant to say,
A psionic person is someone with a predisposition for extral, temporal, you could say, abilities and sensitivities. Someone who has a fantastic intuition.
What did you discover?
I'm a psionic.
Psionics were being used for.
There you go.
In the program, there was certainly a desire to explore the idea that,
of course, you would think you
UAP
could
be summoned, could be communicated with, could be controlled, and could be persuaded to land, all by deploying people with psionic abilities to interface and communicate with the UAP.
And did you see that happen?
Yes, I did.
So there were people who were purportedly psionically gifted who were brought into the program.
Yes, there were.
So now he's going back and talking about the program he was in when he was.
I just want to pause it real quick because I see what's going on. I don't know how much longer we have. This all just goes in line with Bob Lazar's description of the inside of the crafts, 3D printed, no devices, because it would all be controlled mentally through mental connection to the instruments.
Yeah. And I feel like that's the way they say a lot of these quote unquote beings are, right? They've evolved beyond the verbal communication. It's all psychological or psychic or whatever.
I feel like I need the clip from Big Lebowski every time Gooch and I, God damn it, Donnie, you're out of your element.
Yeah.
It's a fun one, but if this is very clearly a crafted,
100%.
i.e., everyone knows the information he's trying to get out, and the interviewer's trying to get him out in the most palatable way possible. They've still kind of gotten him to get a little bit more to the. So there's other people now, and they've all had these psionic connections to other craft, and they're being brought in as consultants as well.
That's exactly what he's about to go in and talk about. And yes, this is 2X because I wanted to get through most of this interview, but we covered the part about the egg, which was the big thing, because that was the thing that was going around X, or at least I've seen it going around quite a bit, that a lot of people have been talking about. So he's the guy that recovered the egg, the mystery about how the egg made him feel with his presence, and the presence is still with him. And they even mentioned at one point where I think
that's the part where I think it's a little bit more than a nervous breakdown, is the presence and the connection to an other.
Yes.
The feeling of a connection to something else.
And I think the interviewer, even like later on in the interview, asked him specifically, like, he was like, so it was like an angelic kind of feeling, right? And he goes into talking about that. So I mean, you guys, we won't run the entire interview because I know Badger's got to go here in a little bit.
To postulate that could just be a super advanced quantum computer. If you've watched fucking Three Body Problem, you can understand this too. It's a super advanced that on a quantum level could interact with your brain, and once you're interacting with someone's brain, you can stimulate any sense of anything you want just based on releasing pheromones or chemicals or endorphins, dopamine. Blah, blah, blah.
There's the limp rose.
Look up, Gooch.
Yeah.
There's a spiritual and a technological, and there's a both answer for all of it. That has all 100%. Been done in sci-fi in some version before.
And I actually think it can all work together. I actually think that all the answers work together. It doesn't have to be one or the other or the other.
Correct.
Like you talked earlier or before we went live, Badger, about the Ezekiel's wheel and the whole vision he had of angels in the Bible, and how some people see that as like an alien craft or whatever with ancient aliens. And others, just take it as like you didn't know what to describe because he was, he didn't know what it was. So they described it the best you could. I look at it as the same thing. Like, why does the spiritual and science have to be apart from each other?
It's the whole sacred geometry thing. We see an exercise called squaring the circle, where you see a perfect geometric square and a circle inside of it. And then a lot of these pilots now, the super official ones, report seeing squares with black circles in them, or the reverse It's the same. You're seeing patterns. So that's the one I'm more. It's like, oh, they've always been here. It's all connected. But then also you get the discs and the one that's very clearly a form of technology. That's where it's everything. Right. It's sussing out which is which.
Yeah, and I saw
if it's all fake, why go to that much fucking trouble to make such differences between all the different things?
I honestly think that there's a lot of truth behind, there's truth in everything, right? Whether it's twisted, distorted, or, put out in a way that it can conceal the truth, but there's truth in everything. Like, it leads to something. It came from somewhere that was a truthful beginning. So I do believe that a lot of the stuff that is discussed here is possibly true in a manner. I don't necessarily believe this particular interview or the subjects that they go into specifically with this guy, because I don't know the guy from Adam, so I'm not going to take his word on anything. But I do believe a lot of the stuff that we have looked into, when I say we, I mean just anybody that's been fascinated about this stuff over how many ever years, that there's truth there. What it may be, I don't know. But I do believe that, coming from my religious background and more of the sci-fi background, right? I don't see why you can't meld those together and why they can't be one and the same. I think a lot of people look at the spiritual world and it has to be all this just, entities, right? Non-physical entities. And I don't think that that's the truth. I think that there's a spiritual element. There is a scientific element. Science comes from somewhere, materials come from somewhere. I don't believe that can't be one and the same. So you talk about those, what was it you mentioned earlier where they just discovered were you talking about the mummy stuff, Badger?
About which one? Because they found a bunch of which specific.
It was whatever you specifically mentioned at the beginning of the show when we went live. I think it was when we were live. Or maybe it was before we went live.
I don't remember 10 minutes ago. Sorry, it's been a long day. They're always finding things. They're always archaeological. Bob Lazar said that his were archaeological finds. This guy found his in a cave. They're referred to as donations.
Yeah, I think in the spiritual world, when I talk about the spiritual world, I think I'm just talking about like a different plane of existence from our world that we can see, right? That we can experience all the senses. And the spiritual world is a little bit different, but it can also have physical beings. We see in the Bible angels, interactions with angels and other religions, sky gods and whatever coming down. Like I believe that these are physical beings that have physical technology, but is also in a way spiritual. I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody else, but it makes sense in my head of how that could all fit together and how that doesn't have to be separate between religion and science.
Yeah. Well, science is all about breaking things down to know the truth, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, the essence of what science is. The discovery.
That's why religion hates science, because, well, that's how the Illuminati started, because they didn't want them part of the church. So
I would say that the controlling aspects of religion, like the Roman Empire, Roman Catholic Church, stuff like that, there was a clash with science. I think that if those that are secure in their beliefs and in the Bible and all that kind of stuff don't dislike science in its form of science. What they don't like is like the scientific theory, right? Because there are so many things out there are scientific theory that become truth, even though it's not proven, because enough people can be like, oh, it's a theory. We agree with this theory here or there.
Science is a method and it's just a series of reproducible events. So
exactly.
You don't trust the science. But the problem is that often religion is disproven by science and science is disproven by religion. There's back and forth. We'll prove, there was a flood. And Bible goes, see, there was a flood. And you go, yeah, but that was just in this one little area. But then there was even bigger flood back then. And it's a constant of like, they don't want to admit one thing because it would disprove and back and forth.
And I think the problem is everyone's worried about being disproven by stuff. But if you're secure in what you believe, right? I was watching Joe Rogan. He had on somebody, I can't remember what his name is, Wes something. He had if you guys know what I'm talking about, Wes, he had a debate with a guy named Billy. Anyway, it was a Christian guy and it was a guy that was non-Christian. They had a debate. It went poorly. Wes went on Joe Rogan and they talked about religious stuff. It's a very interesting thing. But if you believe something,
Wesley Huff,
Wesley Huff, thank you. Yeah. It was a really good Joe Rogan episode. Check it out, or podcast. But if you fully believe in something then you usually aren't threatened to look into something else, right? Even if it makes you question things because you feel like there's an answer. So I think there are too many people on either side of the arguments that get shut down because they are so afraid that they're going to find something that's going to make them doubt. And people don't want to doubt when they believe something, you know? But if you strongly believe in something, you can go out and you can afford to look at things. And that's what I try to do. You know, I strongly believe in what I believe, but I also have an open mind to listen to arguments here or there, or listen to whatever. And that's brought me to the conclusion that I think it's all more together than it is separate, but people just put up, you know, the defenses. They divide it because they are on one side or the other. But I think it could actually be something that is completely legit all the way around.
You have to let go of religious terminology because this goes back to before those religions were invented. Sure. So we have to start using more ancient terminologies, and that's a real problem for some people because they think they're blasphemy. But
that's absolutely true. That's 100% true. It's coming up like too. This is gonna sound weird. It was coming up like too much in the church, where you, as a Christian, you should allow yourself to grow beyond just the words in the Bible and the things you learn in Sunday school, right? There's more stuff to discover out there that will actually give you more knowledge and understanding, and instead of staying in this kind of like box, right? And you're kind of almost trained not to go outside that box because you might, you know, discover something or be confronted with something that you can't explain. And if you can't explain it, then that's a big problem for an individual, right? So I think that's the biggest problem. Terminology, language, history, all these things get kind of diluted when you stay within that box. But if you step outside of it, I think you actually see that it fits very well with, quote unquote, what you would call religion. I just call faith.
Yeah, it's just, not to get sidetracked, and I'm gonna have to get out of here soon, but it was the whole Hegseth thing. Is he's got the Jerusalem cross, and someone was saying, it's anti-Muslim. It's like, that was invented before that religion that you're saying was invented.
Right.
So you can't apply. You can't apply one thing to something where it didn't exist. So the further you go back, we can't apply religious prisms to it because the religions didn't exist. You have to. And that goes to any religious, by the way.
Yep.
But the further back you go and the more abstract, the more free you have to be of your terminology and your thinking. And
I agree.
Sort of goes to what John says, interdimensional beings, you know.
And one of these days, Badger, definitely have to get on and talk more about
super
this
deep topic.
I love talking about it. It's a fun topic to get into, and I could ramble on it for forever. But I know you got to go, so I'm gonna let you go. We've been streaming for a little bit. We're not going to cover the entire interview because it's a long ass interview. I tried to get through it at 2x, and we're still only like not even halfway through it. So if you guys get a chance, if you think it's interesting, or if you just want to see what this guy is talking about, go check out the actual interview. It's on News Nation. You can't miss it. You type in Jake Barber's whatever, it's going to pull up. But check it out. I just thought there was some interesting things when it comes from my background, when it comes from a religious background that he's talking about with this entity, with this feeling, all this kind of stuff. It's my biggest thing is I think that if this is a step in one direction for disclosure, what could that be for? And in my conspiracy mind is telling me this setup for some kind of deception, right? For more control. That's all. That's what I think.
Yeah. Gooch too has been hurt before. He doesn't trust anyone. I get it.
I'm learning this more and more about Gooch.
No, it takes all kinds. I like it. I'm more apt to believe certain elements and look, but that's just because I'm seeing a bigger whole thing which could also be part of it, right? They can look back and see what's been done and make their shit line up to things we've heard before. I get it. It's all a psyop or it's not a psyop. Who knows?
Yeah.
Fun though. I appreciate the invite on it. But I'd love to come back sometime.
Absolutely, brother. You're welcome.
Too much streaming today, though. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, me too.
In a dark room, stare at a wall.
Yeah, me too. I'm ready to.
It was fun just to jump on and go over this. I thought it was super interesting. I appreciate you guys joining me, chat. I appreciate you guys being with us the time that we have been here. A lot of fun discussion, a lot of good jokes there as well. So appreciate you guys. Badger needs Neuralink.
Yeah, one day.
One day. We'll see what. Yes, Wes Huff and Billy Carson. That was what it was. There was a debate between those guys, and that was an interesting one. If you could find that, that was pretty cool. Rossi for $2 says Gucci is DTA # Stone Cold Steve Austin. I like that. I like that. Well, everybody, thank you for joining me. I'll be back Monday. Going Gucci, you can be on this Monday?
I believe so.
All right. The Spawn review at 9 p.m. on Monday. We're going to be looking at something. I haven't figured out exactly what that is just yet. But join us there. It's always a fun discussion if you like the comic book character Spawn. And then I think Kayla said she might be back. We might be doing Appreciating Comic Book Art Live after it. We'll find out. She's finally settled and able to stream again, so we'll see. But if not, I will be back here Thursday at 8 p.m. on the Ronin Joe Show, talking and shooting the shit with the chat. Because I've enjoyed doing this. So appreciate you guys joining me, supporting the show, supporting the channel. If you guys haven't yet, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends and family. Let everybody know that this is a safe place to be. Unless you like getting touched, then that's not.
It's my channel.
Yeah. Definitely go sub to the Gooch, sub to the Angry Badger. They got some great stuff going on. They stream all the time. Fantastic subjects. I'm trying to catch up to them when it comes to that kind of stuff because I've been very inspired by you two gentlemen. And I appreciate every time you guys have me on. Or shout out my project Reaper Destroyer, which is a comic book I have made and is going out into people's hands now. That is it for the shilling. We're going to get out of here because everybody's tired. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to run, not that intro, that's long. We're going to run a shorter intro. That's it. All right, everybody. Like I say this at the end of every show, if you're new to this, be good to each other. Take care of one another. And as always, picture me naked. I'll talk to y'all later.
Stay Gucci.
He should do his duty. And to impress him, takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, to destroy the world."